Good evening. The last time I came on here, we spoke about this really neat scarab signet, which most likely belonged to Ephraim. And I had mentioned how the top third of the ring would have spoken about the owner of the ring, and that he was the leader, the ruler of the Levantines who were living in Goshen. And the Egyptian word for Levantine was retinue. And I showed how a portion of the word retinue is still found in the middle of the signet. And here is the Chenu, Chen U. That makes this Egyptian glyph an N sound, Nu. That is the Egyptian glyph for, approximately speaking, their N sound. And it's the sign, obviously, it's a pictographic sign that later became used for as a phonogram, the sound of the N, but it's a pictogram of water. And you can see it's showing waves or ripples of water. Now this would have been in the 1800s BC, used by the Levantine people in Goshen. As I said, most likely this was Ephraim's ring, and you see they were using the Egyptian hieroglyphs, certainly for this official stamp, this signet. And so we have here Egyptian hieroglyphs used according to the Egyptian system, and that makes this an N sound right here. Well, over 400 years later, someone carves I don't know if that can be seen, but over 400 years later, someone carves into a rock by a mine in the Sinai Peninsula, Serabit el-Kadim, and if you look closely here, and again, I don't know how clear this plaster representation is, but right here is that Egyptian glyph for what would have been the Egyptian Nu, N, the N sound. I'll move it a little bit so you can see some of that. Maybe if I move it over a little, we can catch the light. Anyhow, 400 years after that signet, over 400 years after that signet is carved using the Egyptian N in their hieroglyph system, around 1446, this stone, in this case this plaster cast representing that stone, has that Egyptian glyph carved right here. But this time, as I said, over 400 years later, it's being used by Semites as an M. They've now turned it into their letter M, and with that they spell out the word, actually the name, Moshe. Moshe. That's right. Moses' name carved in a rock by a mine in Serebet El Kandim of the Sinai Peninsula. But if you look in your Hebrew Bibles, you'll see that Moshe is spelled with 3 Hebrew letters. And his name will end with the Hebrew Hey. Over here, we have just 2 glyphs, Moshe, because even though it's 400 years later, it's an Egyptian name, and the Egyptians used only 1 or 2 glyphs to spell the name Moshe, or born, or drawn out from water. So here we have Semitic people in around the year 1446 writing the name Moshe, but using the Egyptian N as an M, but using still the Egyptian system to spell Moshe with 2 glyphs instead of the 3 letters you'd find in Hebrew. And it's not that they didn't have the Hey, because we see right here in other portions of this plaster cast, here's a Hey, and here's a Hey. And these are for the words, the word for, the Hebrew word for wonder or marvel. And it ends with a Hey. So they use it twice, and here's 2 Heys, but there's no Hey here, or no scripta continua Hey up here in this area. They just used what now will be becoming Hebrew letters to spell out Moses, but still using the Egyptian style of a 1 letter, 1 glyph, or 2 glyph system to spell out the name Moshe, Moses, in around 1446 BC. And this is only part of the treasure trove that was rediscovered by Dr. Petrovich some years back, and he's putting the book together to show how, in fact, the Hebrews under Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh began inventing the alphabet when they were feeding the world in the 1800s BC. And it went on to be fully formed by this time, 1446. And it's represented here in the plaster cast. The Egyptian N now being used as the Hebrew M, but still spelling Moshe in the Egyptian form. So I hope that inspired you to believe the Bible, believe what it says, hold to what it says, accept what it says, because the rocks cry out, and in this case, the plaster cast cries out that what the Bible says about Joseph, Ephraim, Manasseh, Moses, Aaron, etc., is true. And we can rely on the scriptures um, for what it says and what it tells us about what happened in the past, what happens in the present, and certainly, and most importantly, what's going to happen with us in the future. God bless and keep you. Good evening. Take care. Lord be with you.